I'm Dwayne Meyer with American Implement, Garden City, Kansas. I am the CSR, Certified Dealer Instructor and Forage Specialist for American Implement. Today we're going to be going through some sprayer maintenance points and covering them. But one thing, we can't cover everything, but the operator's manual can. So be sure to check out these operator's manuals, go through them. If you've got a question, this is your best answer you can come up with. So always remember the operator's manual. Another good source of information is your iPhone or smartphone. John Deere has the Equipment Plus app. You can have your sprayer in there, your planters, your air seeders, your balers, your wide list of equipment in there. And once you get it set up for your particular piece of equipment, there's a vast amount of knowledge in there. On the sprayers, a couple of addition things they've got. They've got a tank mix calculator in there. For your chemicals, they've got a nozzle selection calculator in there. And if you've got direct injection on your sprayer, they've also got direct injection calculators in there. So the Equipment Plus app from John Deere is a good app to have on your phone and to get your equipment logged in and keep track of everything. Anyway, today we're going to start out with this sprayer here. It's a 2015 45R. It, I don't know, has roughly 2,000 hours on it. And we're going to go over some key maintenance points, things you need to watch for while you're in the field doing your daily, weekly, monthly service on these. First thing we're going to do is start out on fluid levels. Antifreeze, there is an overflow tank back up in here, but there is also a surge tank right back under the hood here. The surge tank is your main fill tank. It's got a 20 PSI pressure cap on it. The overflow tank, it is what it's called. It's an overflow tank. Anything the surge tank cannot hold pushes to the overflow tank. It has got an 8-pound pressure cap on it. If you notice you are leaking a little bit of antifreeze, you might look at replacing your 8-pound pressure cap. If it still leaks a little bit more, you might go into your rear tank and replace the 20-pound pressure cap. That should fix the problems there. Another fluid level we have is engine oil, which is dipstick and fill is right back up in there. That is, if you're using John Deere Torque Guard Plus 50, that has a 500-hour service interval. Any other brand of oil or just the regular John Deere Torque Guard, that is a 250-hour service interval. Also back here, we have our hydraulic tank reservoir and just a sight glass to check it out right up in here and your fill cap right behind it. Although it's the hydraulic reservoir, that does not run hydraulic oil. That runs John Deere Turf Guard 10W30. Or you could put in Torque Guard 10W30, but it is actually a 10W30 engine oil. Moving on, we have hub oil. Hub oil is critical. That needs to be changed every 250 hours. That needs to be changed we recommend changing it with the engine oil if you're at the 250-hour engine oil change. So whenever you drain your oil, drain your hub oil, all 4 hubs. These are a high torque hub. They go through a lot of work. The oil does eventually break down in them. Oil is a cheap insurance for that hub. So let's keep this hub oil changed. It's not a hard job to do. Let's take care of it. Part of daily maintenance is greasing. We have on the front, each front wheel, we have 8 grease zerks. 2 on the steering cylinders, 2 for the steering spindle, and then there's 4 grease zerks for the suspension rods. 2 on front, 2 on rear. Those are a daily grease point on both front sides. And what we recommend is just the John Deere SD polyurethane grease. This is just your standard gun grease. This is good throughout the whole machine. Okay, moving on around towards this side of the machine. We do have auxiliary connectors, 12-volt connectors right there that are hooked to the battery, but you cannot use those to jump the sprayer. Those are a 30-amp protected circuit. They are only there for hooking up a electric spray pump, something like that, to help fill your chemicals, fill your sprayer. Right up here, we have our main strainer. That is a daily clean spot. That needs to come off once a day and be cleaned. It does have a drain valve on it, and you don't just drain it, you unhook it and clean the strainer out. Right up here we have our 2 flow meters. This sprayer has 2, some of them will only have 1 flow meter. The book recommends taking those out once a day and cleaning them. A lot of guys don't, but then again, it depends on what chemical you're running through the machine. Some chemicals will cake up on that flow meter and cause erratic readings. So they're very simple, just pop them out, clean them up, move on. On our rear axles, or front and rear axles, I should say, there is a 2mm clearance right back in here. That 2mm is about the width of a credit card. If you can slide a credit card in there, it's fine. If you can get 2 in there, you're probably okay. If you can slide 3 credit cards in there, this axle housing needs adjusted. Fairly simple to adjust. You put a jack under the housing, pick up the sprayer a little bit, support the sprayer, and then there's 3 bolts up here. You would tighten those 3 bolts by hand, not with an impact. They are tightened by hand until you get back to your 2mm clearance here. There is a wedge in there, and the top of the axle is at an angle, so that wedge will push that angle down. So if you're going through the field and you're hitting sprinkler tracks, or when you're stopping or starting, you're noticing your wheels rocking a little bit, these bolts need tightened up. So keep in mind, it's a 2mm clearance. If you can get 1 credit card in there, it's great. 2, it's okay. If you can get 3 in there, it's time to adjust them. While we have our tires right here, let's talk a minute about tires. Every tire takes a different tire pressure, and that we need to go to the operator's manual to find out what that pressure is. This particular tire, it's a Firestone tire. It is an IF tire. This particular tire by the operator's manual is 64 pound pressure, and that is cold pressure when you start out in the morning. As you're running during the day, yes, it's going to increase a little bit, but cold pressure, just starting out in the morning, should be 64 pounds on this particular tire. If you're not sure, go to the operator's manual, check out what your particular tire needs. It is very critical we keep tire pressures correct, especially running in cold weather. Running too low of a tire pressure, you can cause sidewall problems. Moving on towards the rear, back in here, on the rear axle suspension, there are 4 grease zerks back here on both sides. We had 8 grease zerks up front, 4 grease zerks back here for the suspension. There are also 6 grease zerks for our lift pins, and those are a daily grease point. Okay, we're going to stroll around the boom a little bit and talk about the boom a little bit. We have a carry pad right here. So when the wing is folded in, this pad sits up on top of the main boom. If you're noticing when you're folding that this pad is hitting the back and then jumping up onto the frame, bushings are starting to get bad. down on the end, and we will take a look at those. So watch this when you're folding together. If it's sliding on smooth, you're probably good, but if it's hitting a little bit and bouncing up, or if it's even just hitting the middle of the backside, we need to look at bushings down on the other end. Let's take a quick look at these bushings. Our bushings here are a non-greasable fiber bushing. They are considered a 500-hour maintenance. Change them out at 500 hours. Now, you can see this bushing's getting a little fuzzy in there. It is starting to beat out. So it would still run today, but it's something you need to keep in mind. This will need to go in and be replaced very soon. If they go too far, we have to line bore the holes and put sleeves in the holes and then put the bushings in. To put bushings in here, we're probably looking at $300 to $400. Once we line bore it, that's probably going to add about $800 to a side by line boring it. So we want to stay away from line boring if we can. Machine shops love it, but we'd like to stay away from it. Also right down here is a stop. It has a rubber end on it and it is adjustable. This, when your boom unfolds, this is what keeps your boom straight. Make sure your stop is in good condition. The rubber on it is still good. Once that rubber deteriorates and is gone, now you've got a metal to metal deal, and that will vibrate that boom more going through the field, which wears your bushings out quicker. So let's stroll on down here a little ways. Here we have our breakaway pivot, and we've got the same type of bushings as in there, so we do have to watch those. This is a little bit easier to check if they're getting loose because the breakaway is light enough you can just wiggle it from the end of the breakaway to check that out. We've also have a spring right here. If you're starting to get some bounce in your breakaway, you might be able to tighten up this spring and eliminate that. But there's also an adjustment right here that if you tighten the spring too much, you will need to adjust this because then your breakaway will actually ride forward from the boom and it will not be setting on the stop right down in here. We have the same stop in here as we do on the end of the boom, and that breakaway needs to be up against that stop. Coming on down, a couple of things. These aluminum brackets, if you see one broke, replace it. Do it pretty well as quick as you can. Yeah, it can run for a while with one broken, but that will start to vibrate more and pretty soon it'll break the next one down the line. And then that'll break the next one down the line. So if you see one broke, let's get it replaced so you're not replacing 5 of them. Right here, there's a decal saying do not pressure wash. And you'll notice it across the boom wherever there's a boom track sensor. That decal is not necessarily for the boom track sensor. That is for the complete boom. This boom has exact rate and nozzle bodies on it. These do not like pressure washers. You can get water back into the solenoids on either side or into the wiring. So let's keep a pressure washer away from these guys. Now you may ask, how do I clean my boom? And you'll notice down here, we've got a lot of old chemical and dirt here and here, but none up here. Our guys, before we brought it out, we cleaned it this way intentionally. We left this here and cleaned that part up. The way they did that, there's some stuff called concrete remover, and you can mix that in a little garden sprayer, spray down your boom, come back with a garden hose, and that will take this stuff off the sprayer. That's what they've done up here, and it does a pretty good job. Stroll on down a little further. Okay, In our center rear sprayer, we have got 2 wing sprayers and our 2 wing strainers and our center strainer. These need to come out daily and be cleaned. It's not a tough job, and it's better to do it first thing in the morning before you start out than having to stop in the middle of the field and do it. There is a air purge check valve right here. When you air purge this boom, this check valve opens up. If it gets a little dirt or something in it, it will not close properly. And when you go back to spray, you will notice chemical dripping out. These can be cleaned, but if it's too bad, you will have to replace that check valve in there. Rinsing the sprayer. We have got a rinse tank up there. The black tank up there is our rinse tank. That is clean water only. And with exact apply nozzle bodies, they say to rinse this boom once a day at the end of every day. If you've got 3-way or 5-way nozzle bodies, you can stretch that out a little bit longer. But when you go to rinse, they want you to rotate this so you have an open port. If you've got nozzles on every port, take one of the nozzles off. And you do that on each end of the boom and just flow water through it. They're not so much worried about water pressure as water volume. So that's why we take off one nozzle body and let it just free flow water. It will flow a lot of water through that boom and get it cleaned out. Okay, we have got pins and bushings here as well as in our cylinders up here. The best way to check those is have the boom folded in the cradle, put a forklift in here, take a little bit of weight off the boom, off the pins, and then you can just jerk them back and forth and see if we're getting wear in our bushings and pins. Now, we have our rollers here. With the boom unfolded, we're tight against the front roller. We really cannot check that. But our rear roller, this one, the bushing's out. I can jerk the rear roller around right in here, and that bushing is out. So that one needs care, and I'm sure the front one is the same way because they both work together all day long. Now, our main breakaway pin right here, I can tell just by looking at it, we've got some wear in here. This pin, as well as this pin, it looks like has been it's froze in the bushing and rotating. That's just a visual check. These pins are not supposed to rotate. The bushing is supposed to rotate around the pin. The pin is not supposed to rotate. So we do have some wear on this pin out here that you can just visually see. Okay, moving on around the sprayer. We've got our air tank. There is a water drain valve here. You should pop that open every couple days. A compressor makes water. You have condensation. So this is where the water is held. So this needs to be popped open every couple days, clean the water out of this tank. We have our DEF tank right here. We've got a DEF filter right back here, but there is a primary filter in the tank itself. We need to keep the DEF clean to keep this primary filter clean. DEF has got a shelf life of about 12 months, and if it's in the sunlight, it's shorter than that. So if you're buying DEF in bulk, keep it inside, keep it covered up, keep the sun away from it. But then again, like I said, it's only got a shelf life of about 12 months, so don't buy too much DEF at once. Keep just a 12-month supply of it. Diesel fuel, like anything else, keep clean diesel fuel, keep the water out of it. Right back up here is our engine air filters. Those are just a once a year replace. Unless you get information on the display saying it's starting to get plugged, I wouldn't worry about it. Either wait for the display to come on or at the end of the year, change it out. As we stroll around to the front, We have got our diesel fuel filters right here. Those are a once a year change or as needed. If you happen to get a load of dirty diesel fuel, you may need to change them more. We've got our engine oil filter right here. Now, this sprayer actually has a Lincoln Auto Luber on it. So all of the grease zerks I mentioned on the front axle, rear axle, and lift assembly is taken care of by the Lincoln Auto Luber. If you are running a Lincoln Auto Luber, please only run HD lithium grease in it. If you go to the parts counter, not sure what you need, just ask for the peanut butter grease. This stuff looks like peanut butter, and the parts guys know what you mean by peanut butter. But running the wrong grease in an auto luber, any type of auto luber, if that grease separates out, it can plug that system front to back, and it is a bear to clean that system out. So keep the right grease in your auto luber. Okay, the last thing we're going to cover is our air package up here. We need quite a bit of cooling on this sprayer. We've got quite a few different things to cool down. That does need blown out from time to time. It is made so you can pop these open a bit to get an air hose back in there. But to really open it up good, there are 2 bolts, one here on each side, and this side panel pops off to get in and clean it a lot better with an air hose. There are some people who will wash those out, which is not a problem. But if you wash those out, I would recommend pulling the bottom cover off. That way all the trash can just flow straight out the bottom. And that pretty well covers it for our main maintenance on a sprayer. If you do have any questions on maintenance on a sprayer, either give our service department a call or go back to your operator's manual. This will tell you all. Thank you.